part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome back, everybody, to Podcast 616, the official podcast of Earth 616. I am your host, Damon Royster. I am thrilled to be talking about this wonderful Marvel television series, Miss Marvel, aka Sunshine and Delight. I loved it. I am joined by two fabulous guests. I have a returning guest for us today. Last heard destroying Chris Pratt in the Guardians of the Galaxy podcast. Please welcome back writer-comedian Sophia Rafiqi. Hello, Sophia.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I probably will not be destroying this episode, so if that's what the fans have come for, I'm sorry.
They're like, people are looking at their feeds like, Sophia's in this? Yes. Who will she roast? And then also a brand new guest to the pod. I know this person as the biggest High School Musical fan I've ever met in my life. So please welcome Little Miss Sunshine herself, Zoe Agapinan. Hello, Zoe.
Hi. Oh my gosh. Hugest compliment.
Good. How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
I'm good. You know, I actually commented on Ashley Tisdale's TikTok today, getting some traction on my comment. Maybe she'll see it. So dreams are being realized.
Beautiful.
And I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. Okay. I'm happy to have you. Thank you for wearing your Marvel shirt. I'm wearing flowers for a different event. Okay. So we're here today to discuss the Miss Marvel television series. Let's go, Zoe. I know you're a Marvel fan. Were you a fan of the comic books of Miss Marvel? What did you know about her? And how did you like this TV show? Answer all of my questions, please.
No. I'm a movie fan. I actually am like a new Marvel fan. I just like during pandemic times did the whole watch through and like became like a little obsessed with everything. Okay. And I went to that like Marvel exhibit that had at the Museum of Science and Industry, and they had a lot of Miss Marvel stuff there. And I actually learned about her from the museum. But then so that's like really all I knew. But I was like excited that, I don't know, I kind of like they changed her powers. So
me too.
Kind of controversial thing. But yeah, did I answer all your questions?
How did you like the show?
Oh, I loved it. Beautiful. Oh, so good. I feel like I cried a lot, or like just eyes welled with tears.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Same. One part in particular for me, but we'll get to that. Sophia, what was your relationship to Miss Marvel prior to the show, if there was one, and how did you like the show?
I loved the show for so many reasons. And I knew very little about Miss Marvel before watching the show. I would say about a year before the show came out, I got word through what I'll call like the Muslim rumblings, which was like people in the community, other Muslims, other South Asians were like, oh, have you heard of Miss Marvel? This girl Iman from Canada is going to play Miss Marvel. It's a Muslim superhero. It's a teenage girl. So because the representation of the series is so relevant to my community, I knew it was coming and probably had more anticipation for this than any other Marvel thing I've watched.
Yeah. And now that you've seen it all, did it live up to expectations?
Yes, it absolutely lived up to my expectations. I kind of had none, just because the mere fact that it was happening, not only that it's a Muslim superhero, a Pakistani superhero, but then also a teenage girl, like my teenage girl self, who also wasn't allowed to go to parties and was stuck in her bedroom, was like, wow, it's so cool. Yeah. So they had nowhere to fall from, but they pulled it off. I loved it.
Excellent. I loved it as well. I think this is such a fun series. As my good friends know, I love TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Going through a little bit of a rough patch. The creator, we don't need to talk about him, but the show itself, it was so formative for me. So I'm always down for teen discover superpowers, saves the world. Always a good time for me. And I did read the comic books for the nerds out there, yes, did Kamala Khan in the comic books get her powers from the Terrigen Mist that activated her Inhuman gene? Of course. Do I care that it didn't happen? No, I think this is better. And it's a little bit more, I think, interesting how she gets her powers here. But yeah, let's start with Kamala and just like, how is she as a character? You know, this kind of like coming of age story, becoming a superhero. Zoe, how were you liking Miss Marvel herself?
I just like loved. I loved like the imagery of the first episode, just like all of the like comic book kind of like stylings and everything. Just like
So
I felt
cute.
like yes, you had like such a like look into like how her head. I felt and like how fun she is, and like also just like the insecurity of being a teenager and feeling like small. I thought that was like really well blended together. Yes. Yeah, I just thought I just like really thought she was just like she was just so fun. Like she was kind of like doing the teenager thing of like she knew what she liked, and she liked the Avengers, and she likes making costumes, and she likes like drawing and making films, and she was just like doing it. Like it was like, you know, a little not like embarrassed, I'll say, but you know, she was like aware that people knew that about her, but she was like just doing it anyways because she knew she liked it. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh my God, truly. Like that first episode was so good. Like such a good pilot. Like not only like but like just a pilot in general. Such a good first episode and introduction to everything. And like, I loved like, because if you didn't know, I'm a big Marvel fan as the host of Marvel podcast. So I love that she like had these videos, and like we learned that Ant-Man has a podcast, yes. Which I think is so delightful. I really love how the MCU is like depicting how regular people interact with superheroes, and it's very much how we're interacting with them. And it feels, I mean, maybe it blurs the lines of reality. We'll deal with that if it ever comes up. But like, I just like how like you can have people like cosplaying as superheroes in a superhero show. And it just feels very real because that's what we're doing out here. Very meta. I'm pro. Sophia, going to you. How did you enjoy like this first episode and like, meeting Kamala and just learning all about her? Like how did you receive Miss Marvel?
I received happily and with abundance. First of all, I love that actor. And I think what beautiful casting. I mean, her face is she has huge eyes. Her smile is so wide. She looks like a comic book in the best way possible. And as a true insider, I watched a brief video about how she got cast. And I'm a cynic, so I'm liable to think most things are marketing schemes and everyone's out to play with my mind. But the sentiment was essentially that she had been a huge Marvel fan, and she was just like a Muslim teenager who loved this character. And so it's very meta that like she got to play this character, and you can kind of see it. She plays it with such joy. And like almost 60% of what I loved about it was just her and how genuine she's able to be. But I especially loved that when she got her powers, she maintained the sort of self-conscious awkwardness that is being a teenager. And she didn't like get at all. I mean, I know she's young, but I don't put it past media to do this. She didn't get at all sexualized. She didn't become like mysteriously cool or more withholding of her emotions and what she was going through as she became more powerful. I know they've done this in other series, but the way they depicted her struggling with her powers too and sort of having to come into them, I feel like was done to the best in my opinion of other characters I've seen do that. And it really, in a deep film theory way, it really mirrored her growing up. It was like a coming of age movie in so many different beautiful ways for a character that, matches a lot of what I went through growing up that I had never really seen.
Yeah. Oh, truly. That's such a good point you said about like how they weren't overly sexualizing her. And I think that I feel like Miss Marvel, like this version of Miss Marvel they've been good about that. Cause like That's what was so funny in the cosplay scene in the first episode, the very like sexy Captain Marvel, which were like references to like the original Miss Marvel from the 60s and 70s, where it's just a leotard and just like it just doesn't seem practical. I think Iman is what a knockout. Like, it's just nice to see an actor who wants to be there, because I've been watching a lot of Thor movies, and Anthony Hopkins man, does he know he's in most of the Thor movies? I don't know. I don't know if he knows.
It reminds me of Glenn Close.
Glenn Close, Nova Prime from Guardians of the Galaxy 1. Yes. Oh, yes. Glenn Close famously doesn't want to be in a Marvel movie. Let's talk about the supporting characters that we have here. Zoe, how did you enjoy that there was a character named Zoe who was the most popular girl in school with all the Instagram followers? Did you identify with that?
Such a powerful representation of myself. No, I feel like what a long way we've come from like the Proud Family having the character Zoe be a nerd, and now this character Zoe being like so cool.
And still the only white girl.
Yes. And also, like, I'll say, like, she a little like at the end in the finale, she's so supportive and but like in the beginning, like she was like she was like kind of mean. So I was like, maybe I definitely can like jump on that. She knew it was Kamala the whole time and like, kept the secret. That makes sense to me. But also like she never apologized for being mean to her. I don't know. But I did like, I loved the little like I loved her little friend group, and I thought they had like such a fun dynamic together, and kind of like again like mirroring kind of like the two sides of her, like with like she has one friend that she goes to the mosque with, and she has another friend that she goes to the conventions with, and like but they also know each other and blend into each other and like go to those places together. So yeah, I liked that too.
Yeah, that was so good, because I feel like that's true to like not only just teen life but life in general. Like you have like friends, you have different friend groups for different things. So I'm like that she was able to have like a full realized life because of that. Sophia, going to you, any part of the friend group, we'll get to her family in a second, but like any friend in her friend group stick out? Because we have, and I'm sorry I led with Zoe just because I have someone named Zoe on the podcast, but there's Zoe, but there's also Bruno, and I believe she's called Nakia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How did you like her friends? Were they supportive enough of her in this journey?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the one thing I appreciated, I will say the mean white girl becoming nice randomly when I hadn't seen her for a million episodes, mildly confusing, but allegorically what I did appreciate was there's kind of an experience growing up in America, especially if you have more conservative parents, especially in like a post 9/11 world, like having strict parents that won't let you go out and won't let you wear what the quote unquote cool girls are wearing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's like a person like Zoe doesn't necessarily need to be mean to you, but by virtue of existing next to you and like having so much freedom, she becomes a foil for a lot of the things you really wish you could actualize in yourself. And I don't know if they did like the best job depicting that. I don't know if other people picked up on that, but it did make me feel seen, because I remember that experience of thinking like, oh, that girl's so mean, when really it was probably just like she had a lot of the freedom to develop herself at a younger age and be whoever she wanted to be that I was wishing I had. So for that reason, I really appreciated her character. The white boy who is just constantly simping for her, amazing.
Yeah.
Did not mirror my experience whatsoever, but I love it. I will take it as some sort of retribution. I appreciated it. And I just thought that he was so wholesome. I did at times be like, speak up for yourself, man. You can do it, like no matter, you're doing so much work for her. Like that was my one. She was such a great person. Miss Marvel, but I was like, okay, this boy has feelings. At least be a little sensitive. I know you're going through a lot, but come on.
Honestly, because are we to believe that Bruno is like a year older than her because he's going off to college?
I mean, based on the knowledge Bruno has, I am to believe he is a 45-year-old man. Like he knew everything about anything. But yes, I'm assuming at least a year older.
Yeah,
he's like going early decision or something, like to Caltech.
I think Kamala's just waiting out the clock. She's like, let's just just go. You go.
I'll find you.
Yeah, we'll meet up soon. But yeah, Bruno, I believe, did he live above the Circle Q that her parents owned? Was that the deal?
It seemed so, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It kind of seemed like he lived alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Serious.
And his home got blown up by that racist government agent.
Yeah, he put it all on the line.
Yeah, all on the line for my girl. But let's speaking of the Circle Q and her family, what about their last name is Khan, right? They're the Khans.
Yes.
How did we enjoy the Khans? For me, the mother, I believe, is Muniba. What's her name? MVP of this whole show. I think I loved her so much. Sophia, how did you like her family, starting with the mom?
I loved her family. I loved the archetype of like the kind of the goofy dad who's sort of just enforcing what the mom's thinking about and just following around her, trying to make the conflict okay. Found it massively relatable, if not healing, that they couldn't really manage to have a conversation about any of their points of conflict without it becoming like mildly dysfunctional. And the brother, who is just perfect, is such a real thing because, knowing a couple of people who worked on the show too, I'm assuming they're self-aware enough as Muslims to know, like, we do have an issue in our community that surely is mirrored by the universe, where the boys are treated like little princes a lot of the time. Not by everyone, but and they can do no wrong. Whereas the girls' like natural wants and desires are seen as like potentially dangerous. And I think that brother did a great job of underplaying that, which made it more annoying that he was so lauded because he was just usually chilling, like not doing much. And the parents just ate it up.
Right. Because I mean, he's getting married, which I assume they would grandchildren. That's very important to continue the lineage.
Like the top of their Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for sure.
Give us the baby. And then going over to Zoe. So we hit up the bomb. I have to wait to talk about what really made me love the bomb. But Zoe, how did you enjoy Yusuf, the dad?
I was going to say goofy dad. That's my favorite thing to watch. Like to tell a joke and stuff like that. And also like dealing with technology. Like they were very funny about it was funny to watch, like parents using technology and parents not understanding the Avengers or like all of this kind of thing. But I liked that, like the family dynamic that was going on, like especially like what Sophia was saying with like the older brother, like almost being like a third parent and like not really her having like no outlet in her own home to like feel like she can express herself or like, always feeling like she's walking on glass.
Yeah.
But it was like also fun. Like they were also fun together. So it was also, I liked seeing that like dichotomy of like feeling stuck, but also like having love and not feeling like she was like being like, she had to study all day and never leave the house or whatever. Like she was still like living her own life, but it just feeling stuck inside of that like kind of pressure, I guess. But I loved the mom, and we'll talk about it later, like you said, for the reasons why. But like, I like grew up without a mom, so whenever I see a mom being really strict on TV, I always catch myself being like, why is she doing that? Like, say something to her. Like, she doesn't get it. She just explain it to her. Like, I'm always kind of like misunderstanding it. So so for the beginning, I was kind of like, man, she really just doesn't even want to understand her. Like, what's going on? She doesn't get her. Let her be happy.
Truly. And I think we can get to the part that we're all dying, at least I'm dying to talk about, but I think the show did such a good job of like having those conflicts. And I feel like most things where I've seen like South Asian parents being very strict. I feel like I've never seen it get resolved. And so that's why I loved like that choice towards the end of the series where like, God, we haven't got to the superpowers yet. This is a superhero show, if you didn't know. That the mom got to see her daughter use her powers, and she was very understanding. And she was like I like that we kind of skipped over like, don't do this. Like we skipped over her being strict about being a superhero. I was like, oh, you're the light girl, as the nightlight, as they kept calling her. And I love, she made her superhero suit. You guys, yeah. She made her suit. She's like, you're going to need this. I'm like, she will need that. I welled up with tears. Sue me. I like when people get along. I'm sorry. Call me crazy, but I think it's really cool when a parent understands who their child really is and what they're trying to do and supports them. And just get someone else talk. Great. I loved it. Oh.
I felt like those moments where you feel like the thing you hated to hear from grownups is now coming out of you. And you're like, oh, wow, I have formed into a 1,000-year-old willow tree. Yeah. One thing I really loved about the costume was every single Marvel like femme superhero is always in pretty much like a Lycra pantsuit, I guess, other than like Loki is my only other visual reference that I remember, where there's like an outfit where I'm like, oh, if I were fighting people, I might wear that. And say what you will about the Muslim wardrobe, but like the halal way to dress as a woman that we were raised with, of like, if you're wearing something tight on the pants, like make sure that your top is like a little bit longer to cover your ass and shit like that. I used to be like, oh, that's so patriarchal, which it is. But in that moment, I was like, here, the Muslimness comes in clutch, because this is a very functional outfit with which to fight people. And I could hear like my grandma and my aunts in the back of my head being like, why are you wearing that? You can't do anything in that. You're going to bend over, your ass is going to be hanging out. And I was like, the call's coming from inside the house.
It's me.
It's me.
And it's like a superhero fan outfit too. Like she has the cape and everything, like, and the mask. Like I feel like she feels like so strong in it too. Like all of it was, I loved it so much.
Yeah. That's always my favorite part of any superhero origin story, is when they get the mask, because I believe that's called a domino mask, the thing where it's like over the eyes. I think that's what you call it. I always love that, and it's so important. And also, I love that because sorry, I'm going to geek out on my Marvel podcast. Excuse me, but Marvel doesn't often do this like the MCU. They seem to have done away with like secret identity stuff. So it's just nice to see, especially for like a kid superhero, like she has to protect her identity because like everyone's going to be looking at her. So I enjoy that. And what I also enjoy? Talking to our sponsors. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the superhero elements of the superhero show. I know you think there's no superhero-ness, but there is. There's so many explosions. You're going to love it. So come right back to Podcast 616, and we'll be right back after this break.
Hi, my name is Sam Post, owner of Phenomenal CBD Store and PhenomenalCBD.com. That's like phenomenal, CBD.com. Tune in where we talk with experts about how the amazing hemp plant can make a difference for people's health and well-being from the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of Producing While Asian. Join us in Season 2 for more conversations with actors, artists, producers, and more from Broadway, Hollywood, and beyond, every other Wednesday on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
And we're back. Thank you so much. We're back from the break. Okay. Talk to me. I love this show, but I got to tell you, what didn't work for me was the clandestines of it all. I like that they tried to, what did they call it? The gin element that they tried to incorporate that, but just the clandestines. Zoe, can you do me a real solid? Can you explain their whole thing? Explain the veil. Explain it all. I know you know.
Right. Yeah. I actually did have to rewatch with captions and read it because I was like, wait, I was also like a little bit like, huh? So they get casted out into Earth from their home world.
Mm-hmm.
And now but we never find out why. We can assume for something bad, the way that they murder each other. And so
there's that.
So they, I guess, want to get home. And so they need the bangle because it uses the Noor, which is what the veil is made out of, that covers the entrance to their world. Their world, I guess, lives on top of our world, but we can't see it, right? Or something
right.
like that.
Multiverse of madness, yes.
Yeah. And so that is why they're here, but we still don't, I mean, we don't know, right? Why exactly they're here, or I guess they've been here, how long they've been there, maybe forever. So
yeah. Well, that's the other thing. So the leader of the clandestines is Najma, who's our main villain, and she's immortal, but then she had a son who's also immortal, but he kind of aged a little bit. Did he come out as a teenager? What? Tell me.
Yeah.
And also, one other thing, why is it so? In the 5th episode, they open the veil, but then it ends up killing them. Najma's like, "Hey, I got this. I'll close it by sacrificing myself." And then she transfers her powers to her son, and then he has powers that I've never seen her use. And I'm like, why didn't you use those fancy light moves? If Sophia, how did you feel about this clandestine loophole? I'll call it.
The way I felt about it was confused and that pinning a bunch of pictures up on the wall and taking red thread and trying to connect the dots and make it make sense. And then I just kind of gave up because I was happy enough to hear people talking about Noor and jinns on a Marvel show. But I think that was the only part. A lot of times when something is going to profess itself as being about a Muslim or about South Asians, there are a lot of parts where you're sort of squaring your own experience with wait, did they have a consultant who wrote this? Is that a different person's experience, or did they make that up? And I never really had that experience watching this, which was really refreshing and cool until the jinn part, because in Islam, and if there are any other Muslims listening, Assalamu alaikum. And second of all, please do not come for me because I was taught everything about Islam pretty much through word of mouth. We don't speak Arabic. So if I'm making this up, blame my grandma. But what she told me was that jinns are not angels. They're not demons. They're made of fire. They are neither good nor bad, but they're sort of these tortured beings that God created on purpose that can become really fixated on something, including a person. And they can have good intentions or bad intentions. And so I guess allegorically, the way they're commonly referred to in American pop culture is sort of as a foil for ghosts. In the way that people are well, what's your Christmas? And it's we don't have a Christmas. What's your ghost? Kind of jinns, not really. So initially I was oh, cool. The villain is jinns. This is a thing I grew up fearing, which was really cool to me. But then it kind of fell apart where Noor means divine light. My cousin's name is Noor. It's a common name. It's an Arabic word. And so then when they were we're from the Noor dimension, I was okay, cool. And then they were clandestine. So I was wait, are you jinns? Did you get mistaken as jinns? And then the powers thing at the end was very confusing. As someone who has multiple distant relatives who believe that they were possessed by a jinn, that is also a thing that people culturally say in the South Asian community. So at the end, when she whispered her son's name, I immediately was oh, she's transferring her energy to him in a possession, in an evil way.
I did too. Yep.
And I felt maybe it was power of suggestion, but then when he went to Bruno and was looking for refuge, to me, it felt he was being sneaky, as if he was really his mom operating his body. And then it felt that was completely dropped. So there was definitely, especially in that episode, I was oh, we need a little more. You need to hold her hand a little more. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, truly. Thank you. I'm glad someone else thought that, because I thought, because, you know, the penultimate episode, I'm like, Najma's our big bad. I thought, okay, she's going to possess her son. And then Kamala's got like, oh, the hot guy possessed by your mother. I have to kill you. Why? But I will say, I did like Najma as a villain. I liked how she had this thing where like she would ask people once for the bangle, like consistently. She's like, give me the bangle. And then when they didn't, she immediately went to the fight.
You know who it reminded me of?
Oh, who?
Great reference that will hit for probably no one. Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men. Listen, I love a bad guy with a code. Mm-hmm. You know, you may think they're bad, but they have a procedure and they follow the procedure and they do give you a chance to just help them out. And when you're not willing, they have one response and it's kill. A predictable villain is easier for me to believe in, because then I believe they believe what they're believing in. Did that make sense? Yeah.
And Anton Chigurh, that's Javier Bardem's character?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Call it. He had the coin.
Yes.
Why, man. Remember 2007? What a time. No for Zoe. But I'm trying to gracefully transition into one of my favorite parts, which was the flashback episode. Y'all, I don't think I've ever said this on this podcast, but I love a prophecy. And when the prophecy gets paid off, mwah, chef kiss. So good. Gonna go to Zoe. How did you, for me is my favorite episode, but how did you feel about the time travel aspect of Ms. Marvel, which is completely different? Like, this is a brand new territory than the comics ever went.
Yeah. I really liked I love the time travel, alternate timeline thingies. So like, I feel like just like her going back, also the moment she's like realizes she's at the train and she's walking through and she's like kind of crying and she's looking around. I like started crying too, because I was like, you know, when you're just like so nervous, you don't know what to do and anxious and you're lost.
Yes,
and
I live in LA. Yes,
she acted so well. Yes, she was so good. And then just like finding out like you know, the whole show where like, who is Aisha? What happened to Aisha? And getting to like that story was just like so good, and it being a time loop of her like going back to help her grandma find her dad, so that, you know, the family could continue on, and the stars. I was like, hold on, like this is really beautiful. And I think like for people, like somebody who like, you know, maybe she's a grown up in America and maybe feels like a little disconnected from like her family that lives in Pakistan, just being able to like feel like she has always been a part of her own family and her own story, like gave me the chills. I was like, I just thought it was really smart, and I think it's a really good choice. Like, you know, we see a lot of like random stuff motivate heroes in Marvel movies. So to have like something that really like so beautiful and give her the confidence to go back into her own life and like be a superhero is like so touching.
Yeah, like this is her kind of traumatic, but not as traumatic as like, you know, Bruce Wayne watching his parents get murdered, or Superman seeing his planet be destroyed as a baby. Like, this is her, like her motivation. That she, oh God, you know, just what you're seeking is seeking you. My God. And
her,
the
like,
fact,
worthy moment, like she is worthy of,
like, I just like that moment where she shows up and Aisha is already dying and she's like, what do I do? And Aisha's like, you know what to do. Like, you're here. Like, it's like the loop is complete because you're here. I know you're going to do what I need you to do. Like that. Sophia, talk to me about Aisha. How do you feel? How are you doing? How are we all doing? I'm losing it.
I feel great. This is one of those things, kind of like similar to Everything Everywhere All at Once, where I wish if I had a better, like more emotionally, I'll say lubricated. No one make that word weird for me. Relationship with my family. I'd want to view it with them because it communicates a lot of things that, not to be cliche, you just can't say it. Like, you know, you can't articulate exactly a lot of the connections it made. What an amazing episode. And it was kind of the partition episode. What an amazing writer, how well done, because that is such a tall ask to explain to like the American public in one episode, not only what partition was, how it affected very specific people, this specific girl, her specific family, but also knowing that when you have an American audience, you're like immediately responsible for also like teaching them the whole history or whatever.
Yeah.
And I know the writer had posted on her Instagram, if people want to check it out, readings that you could do to, you know, like learn more about partition if you've gotten interested. But a couple of my big pet peeves were so well massaged in this episode about partition. Number one being a lot of things about partition center the British people. And they spent a lot of time showing a bunch of white people being mean just to be like, it was bad. And it's like, I know that. And also that's not fun to watch. And I appreciated that was not part of it at all. And then also a lot of things about partition act like, you know, oh, this was the olden days, you know, and like everything's like sepia and like there's like carriages and stuff. And while the British were there for like 200 years, independence was like late 1940s, like, you know, so it's a very young idea. It's both countries in their own sense are like very young, especially Pakistan did not exist before 1947. So I appreciated that they were realistic about like, this is a relatively modern idea. This isn't some archaic thing. I think a lot of children of immigrants can relate to the feeling of seeing and understanding your parents' pain and the gargantuan superhero-like thing they did in order to like protect the lineage and make everything better for everyone else. And yet also in being your true self, you feel like you're ruining it so often because you're breaking from tradition and you're doing things that make your parents upset or have them grapple with things they're not comfortable with. And the pain of feeling like you ruined this crazy feat of strength by being yourself is so deep. And yeah, it was so beautifully healing to become a part of that. I think a lot of like Desi kids have their own journey with like asking their own relatives, considering it is such a young thing. Like, you know, my grandpa came on a train from India to Pakistan, just like her nanny did, you know, when she was really little. And my grandpa's probably like 12. But it's not something that people readily talk about, which was also really cool to see depicted. Like you would think something so recent and so hugely traumatic would be something you would talk about with your family members. And whether it's because we don't really have a culture of, you know, leading with emotion, or whether it's because it is still too fresh or too painful. I only ever learned about those things once I learned about it in like American media. And then I would go back to my family and be like, wait a minute, this happened to you?
Yeah.
So all around, just like, oh, beautiful job on that episode. That writer deserves an award.
Truly. I did want to ask, Sophia, did you ever watch, because Doctor Who did an episode recently about partition.
I have never seen Doctor Who, but I would love to.
It's season 11. I think you can just watch the one episode. It's the first time they have a female doctor, and it's called Demons of the Punjab. I liked it, but I don't know if I should have. But I think they did a very good job.
I heard you.
Yeah. So check that out if you enjoyed episode 5, which it's so good. I love, like the little radio person in the beginning. But I gotta, just for purposes that will become clear later by the end, I gotta talk about Kamala's hot great grandfather Hassan. Who is this man? Where is he? I need to find him. We need to talk.
I can tell you.
Please.
Yeah. His name is Fawad Khan. And he is a Pakistani actor that I knew of for a long time. So it was very gratifying to have the public thirst over him, because he is very thirstable. But I'm used to like, and this is no shade to Fawad, but I had not really touched in with him, you know, recently. I hadn't really been keeping tabs on his career. And I know him from like, he got his start on Pakistani dramas, which are, in my opinion, much more elevated sort of soap operas, but they are very soap opera-y. And they're not necessarily considered, especially by like Western media, to be like, you know, artistically, you know, a big deal or like important acting. And so it's very gratifying to see him. He's done a million amazing things since then, of course, but it's great to see him get the praise and thirst that he deserves.
Yeah. well done. Because just that episode. Because again, I'm a broken record. I don't care. I'll keep saying it. Marvel doesn't do love stories very good, but with Hassan and Aisha, just seeing them meet for the first time, I was like, oh, they're gonna fall. They're gonna have a baby. Like they need to have a baby. So that was so good. I want to skip to the last episode, and we haven't talked about the government agency DODC. I believe stands for Department of Damage Control. Zoe, did you like the DODC? These and that racist woman with her helmet hair who was like, I think she was Zoe. How did you feel?
Well, so the DODC is Department of, they're like the same people. That's like the people in Spider-Man in Homecoming, right? That like clean up everything, and it's like a Tony Stark funded program or something.
Yeah, and that guy, the male guy, he was actually in the last Spider-Man movie. He interrogated Aunt May and Zendaya.
Yeah. So like, it is. I guess I was like thinking about this because I was like, Department of Damage Control. I guess like all things Tony Stark did was started as a way to try to help people, but like obviously just turned into unforeseen things. Power trip, I guess. And so I was always like, dang, how come in the beginning of, or like in the first phase of Marvel too, like when all of these like super people came, they were so nice. And then I was like, oh well, we don't have S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore, and S.H.I.E.L.D. was the Nazis, and blah 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 blah. So then so then I'm like, okay, Department of Damage Control. Like, I guess I'm just like confused. Like, I know they kept saying they wanted to take them in alive, but like, what were they gonna? And they were that like scene where they escape, where they like are in like a basement like hallway with their hands over that like. And I was like, what is going on? Like, what are they doing to people? And like, how many people do they have already? / like, what is like? This seems so evil. Like, I'm kind of like surprised. I guess I'm like, why they're so evil?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for better or for worse, it's kind of what always brings me back to Marvel is that like even the good guys are like not always good. You get that depth. Don't trust anyone, kids. But I think they also just serve a function to give Kamala a bunch of dudes to beat on with her powers, which we haven't talked. Can I just say I love her like light powers that she basically just extends her hands to like these like light hands. My favorite moment in the finale is when she just put up the peace signs with the her giant hands after she squashed some cars. But yeah, how did we enjoy the teens working together, settling their differences aside, and throwing some softballs?
So good. Perfect in every way.
Zoe, dare I say we're all in this together?
How dare you say it? It's like in High School Musical 2 when they all are at the golf course together.
Yes,
together and to do the do the talent show.
They've got to work it out.
Exactly. Bet on it. So I just like the shenanigans, and I feel like when in that part where they had like again the like comic book panel kind of drawings of things, I was like, oh, I missed this. Like I feel like it's been a minute since we've seen it. Or, and it's been a couple episodes since they used it. But again, just like so much fun. And like, I usually hate the like inclusion of like virality of the internet, like teens always being, talking about that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But like, I actually think like it was smart the way they used like Zoe's character. Like, she's going to go live. And she's going to ask everyone to come here. I'm like, okay, that's like, that like, I feel like if I were in a real life situation in the world we live in with like internet and stuff, like I would also be like, okay, how are we going to get people here? Okay, you have to like
go live.
Followers, ask them to make some noise, and they would. So
yeah. And that was so fun, seeing like the Jersey community coming together to support like I love when you can just see people basically do what we're doing at home, like cheering her on. Such a good fight. Cameron, God, we didn't even get to the Red Daggers. Apologies to them. They're out there. Red Daggers, I guess they're like destined to protect the world from the Clandestines. And so Kamala sends Cameron off to them for protection back in Pakistan. And then she's just Miss Marvel. Did we see? Oh my God, you guys. Then when her dad named her Miss Marvel, always our little Miss Marvel. Yeah. What are you doing to me, Disney Plus?
I saw I think I saw it on Twitter, like somebody posted that's like exactly from the comic book, like that the exchange that they have is the same thing he sends to her in the comic book. And I guess that there's a few parts in the show that are like exactly the panels from the different comic books, different issues of her comic. So yeah, it's so, it's really sweet. And like that she's like, again, this whole time she's always been a Miss Marvel, but like, you know, she had to kind of like go through this journey to realize and find out like these things about herself. One of them being what her name means and stuff.
It was really cool too. Her first name, and this is a good example, I feel like, of it matters who you hire to write certain stories or, you know, be involved in the whole process, because immediately, like, I'm used to watching things about Muslims and being like, oh, they didn't consult one person probably. And, you know, it's whatever, it's better than nothing. But like simple things, like I've seen people read namaz in movies and TV shows in the wildest way, where I'm like, literally, you ask one Muslim, they would be like, whoa. What are you doing? Why are you rotating in a circle? Like, what's going on? And a good example of the opposite was initially, as someone who didn't know a lot about the comics, I was like, oh, her name's Kamala. That is traditionally not a Muslim name. And in the subcontinent, you can usually tell Muslims apart from other religions because their names usually have to be Muslim in some way, either literally from the Quran or like Quran adjacent. And so I was like, oh, that's a weird oversight, but it is a South Asian name. So like, whatever. And then the fact that it like that bore such really specific and intentional fruit was, again, so cool, because I'm so used to have like brushing things like that off and being like, oh yeah, it's no big deal, which it's not necessarily, but the opposite happening where it's like, no, we knew that. And we specifically like let it lead to this beautiful thing is so gratifying.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Thank you. Such a good moment. Also, did we all see the secret scene after the credits?
Yes.
Brie Larson. Spoiler. There she goes. I was like, okay. Oh, okay. She's here.
She's showing up in post-credit scenes. There's recently.
Wait. What'd you say?
She's been in a bunch of post-credit, or not a bunch, but like she was also in the Shang-Chi one.
Shang-Chi, yep. Mm-hmm.
And it's like she's around. She's coming.
Get ready.
She's coming.
The cynic in me was like, okay, so this young Muslim teenager finally, you know, like found her voice and like self-actualized, and now she turned into a white lady. I was like, okay, yep. Okay, Brie.
That's how you progress.
I think they like. I was thinking the same thing of like, did she shapeshift or something? But I think,
or did they?
That's what I'm saying. I think that they like switch places, or you know.
I think I interpreted the body language that Brie was giving me as that's still Kamala, but now she looks like Brie. Yeah. But I have no idea.
I saw. I was watching my TikTok, so I'm very scholarly about the episode afterwards, and someone brought up that is a new Captain Marvel suit that like we haven't seen before. So, like, if she did shapeshift into her, she wouldn't have shapeshifted into an outfit she's never seen before,
right?
Or if she was like becoming her or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. I hope that they switch places, because obviously, and then I was like, where is she? Is she okay? Like,
I mean,
space.
Well, Zoe, I think we're going to find out in the Marvels, which will be.
The Marvels come out.
I have no idea. I think, maybe they like early next year, 2023.
They're fast. They just crank these things out.
Yeah, which not always great because sometimes you watch them and like, did you like, the Doctor Strange movie with Wanda? I was like, did you watch WandaVision? Because this is a different thing that they were doing. We'll tackle that when it comes. All right, that's Miss Marvel. I think we across the board we loved it. I think it's time for our favorite segment and the segment we do every week. Fuck, marry, kill. Miss Marvel edition. We are responsible adults watching superhero content. We're not going to be fucking the kids. Get out of here. Get out of here. Leave. Just leave. But if you're not thinking that, please stay. So we have curated a list of 3 people that we are going to decide who we're going to fuck, marry, kill. First up, we got Amir, Kamala's brother, Najma, Kamala's enemy, the villain, the leader of the Clandestines, and Kamala's great-great-grandfather, Hassan. I don't know how he got on here, but yeah, we're going to decide. I'll go first. I've casually thought about it. I'm going to marry Hassan. I'm marrying that great-grandfather. That man is so hot. I didn't know canes worked for me, but they do. Mm-hmm. Love the limp, love the look, love the beard. Mwah. Such what gorgeous human being. Now it's going to be hard. I think, I mean, it already happened, but I guess I'm going to kill Najma. I don't like that she only asks once and then she tries to kill you. That, what if I forget? What if I miss a text? Like that's going to be dangerous. I just need to eliminate that. And then I guess I'm going to fuck Amir. Apologies to his new wife. He was handsome, a bit goofy for my taste, but one night, I could do one night. And those are my answers. Let's go to Sophia. What are your picks?
This is only mildly complicated for me by the fact that I have met the actor who plays the brother. We're not besties. We're follow each other on Instagram level, but even just a mild acquaintance, it's like hard to conceive of either fucking marrying or killing them. But for that reason, I'm going to kill him. Because
least offensive choice.
That probably says a lot about my psyche, that I'm more comfortable killing someone I know than fucking or marrying them. And that's between me and my own work on myself.
Happy to call you a friend.
Thank you. Moving on. I am absolutely going to fuck Najma. Great, amazing face, very intense eyes. I love the conviction. I feel like it would translate well, to the bedroom. And for the same reason that I probably wouldn't be friends with her, I feel like the decisiveness that she displays would, again, I feel like the experience would be great for me. And then, of course, I'm going to marry Fawad Khan's character, the great grandfather. Speaks to like that is just like what all of my family members look like. Like they're all Punjabi. Like pretty much if you go back past like my dad, everyone lived in like villages that look very much like that. So like everything from like my brain and down to like my follicles and my ovaries were like, yes, please head in that direction. So it would almost be beyond me not to marry him.
Gosh, follicles. Wow. As well.
Powerful stuff.
Zoe.
Okay. Such a hard decision. But I obviously I have to marry Hassan. He is a good dad and he has conviction. And I feel like I get insecure in relationships and I need someone who knows exactly what they're saying and has no anxiety or doubt about it. So that is my pick. And also he's hot. And then, and here comes the hard one. I guess I would kill Najma because she is so intense and that's scary to me. And like, and she does like, I do think it's interesting that the way she dies, she's like, I'm going to go through the veil. And then she's like, don't go through the veil. And then she goes, so true. Let me save my son. and then just sacrifices herself instead. Very interesting. But I still kill her. And then that leaves me with fuck Amir. I would be so nervous. It would be really awkward. But
wait, say more. Why?
Yeah.
I would be like,
picture for us.
just like imagining me being like this, like, okay, like, yeah, I guess let's do it. Thank you, and then leave.
Thank you, she says.
I'm like, this is a hypothetical game, and I'm like flushed. I'm like getting hot thinking about the proposition period, even before the sexual relations.
Mm-hmm. Is it because he's like a good religious boy, so you feel like it's improper?
I feel like it's because I would be like his wife is or his fiance is so beautiful. And I'd be like, me, I'm just the pumpkin,
The pumpkin.
Wow.
I'm just the pumpkin. So I think it would make me feel like I just would be nervous. But I mean, if I fucked anyone, I would be nervous. So, and that's something I have to deal with.
Well, if it helps, first of all, you are not a pumpkin. You are a little statuesque person. But second of all, if it helps, if he really is the true like golden child Muslim boy, he might be a virgin.
That's so
especially if he's not married yet. Or he's one of those Muslim fuckboys that like acts really religious in front of the parents, but then because he can do whatever he wants, he's like fucking around with white girls and waiting to marry his like virgin. I have a lot to say about that, but
Yeah.
Really important insight. Reminding me that I am again putting so much value on other people and forgetting about myself. Thank you, Sophia.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. Put yourself first, like that Crazy Ex-Girlfriend song says. I don't know why I brought that up. Great.
Why not?
Beautiful. Another fuck, marry, kill in the books. One for the memories. Let's do this. Zoe, if people wanted to find you on the internet, where could they look?
You could look on the app Instagram, and my username is the @ and then a Z, the number 0, and then the word 3. Zoe 3.
Brilliant. Sophia, same question. Where can we find you?
You may find me at all social media platforms. And my handle is Sophiqui, SOPHIQI.
Beautiful. Gorgeous. My name is Damon Royster. You can find me at Damon Royster on Instagram, Damon Royster 88 on Twitter, DAYMANROYSTER. You can also follow me at Gay Frazier on Twitter. That's gay with 2 A's because that's how gay it is. It's a fun time. You can also follow this podcast, Podcast 616, on Twitter at Podcast 616P3. That P3 stands for Press Play Productions, our mother network. Thank you. Producer Michael from Press Play Productions. Michael, if you want to hop on the mic real quick, what letter grade would you give this podcast?
A solid A.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you, Michael.
We only win. Thank you, Michael, so much for being our producer today. Thank you, Zoe and Sophia, for talking some Miss Marvel with me. This was a lovely chat. I love both of you, and I love the show. Thank you. God, this is gonna be a great day because of this. So thank you so much.
I know. Love all around.
All around. Thank you for listening to Podcast 616. Next week, we're going to be talking about the Captain herself, Captain Marvel. So stay tuned for that. But until next time, please have a great day. And remember that with great power comes even greater responsibility.